Hey everyone, Toby here, welcoming you to my Fantasy EFL Game Week 1 preview. I'm going to be going over a few tips ahead of the new season. We're going to talk about the new rule changes, some of the defenders, midfielders and forwards that I think that we should be targeting and looking at, as well as going over my team selection as well and how we're looking ahead of Game Week 1. Of course, it's Game Week 1, so things are going to change over the season. Not everything's going to be as we expect, but we're going to give it our best go to try and predict, try and do well going into the start of the season, and hopefully have a great season altogether. So welcome to my first video on the channel. Thanks for coming along and let's dive into it. So point scoring in Fantasy EFL is a little bit different this year. Last year I think that there were a few things that needed ironing out and potentially needed changing, and I think that the people at Fantasy EFL have done a good job of editing things a little bit this year. I was quite vocal about a few of the changes, so I'm happy that they've happened. But with shots on target in particular, that's the first one I'm going to go over. You get a point for every shot on target this year in Fantasy EFL, which I think is crazy. I think that's a really good way of scoring points rather than one every two. So for example, if you get 3 shots on target in a game, well last season that would have got you 1 point because you needed you'd get 1 point for the 2, you'd need 4 to get 2 points. This year that's 3 points. That's a massive difference and a massive swing, you know. So 5 shots on target in a game, it's pretty unlikely to happen, but that gets you 5 points, whereas last year you'd only get 2 for that. So it's a major change. It really buffs the attackers whose average points were a lot lower last season than the other positions, which is really good, and helps midfielders to try and catch up to defenders as well. So I think that's a really good change. Clearances as well, I think that they did need nerfing, and they have been this year. They've been made a little bit worse. It was 3 clearances for 1 point for defenders last season. Now you need 4 clearances to get that 1 extra point. So I think it's a really good change. I don't think it's going to necessarily stop the top clearance, top kind of clearance-based players being targeted, and I think a lot of people will run with 3 at the back still. But I think it's a bit better. You're not going to have players like Dimitri running absolute riot. If he got 15 clearances last season, he'd have been getting 5 points for that. Now he'd just be getting 3 points. He'd need to get to 16 to get 4 points. I think it's a really good change, and it's pretty major for the sake of the game. Penalty saves needed buffing as well. You get +5 for a penalty save rather than the +3 from last season. So that's major, a good change for goalkeepers to be made a bit better. Own goals are now in the game as well. You do get a minus for that, which I think is a good addition. And also goalkeepers get a +10 for scoring a goal, which is crazy. That's like, I don't think that's been done in a different fantasy game before. I could be wrong there. But I think that's a really good addition. If you get lucky with the keeper goal, you have the license to go absolutely crazy. Great addition to be put in, and something that's probably not going to happen, maybe not very often anyway. And then in terms of goals scored as well, this is for the club picks. So you get a bonus +2 for your club scoring 4 goals this year. So an extra +2 on top of the initial +2 for 2 goals. So you get a +2 for 2 goals, a +2 for 4 goals. So 4 points if you do score 4 goals with your team pick, which is a good addition as well. I wouldn't be against it just being 1 point per goal that you score. If you pick a team that wins 7-0, then I think you probably deserve 7 points for that. I think that's really impressive. It does mean that 13 pointers are possible this year, which the 11 pointers were the maximum last year, and they were pretty hard to come by. A 13 pointer now is going to be wild. If you get that in an away game, that's, you know, pretty heavy. That's the only way to get it. You deserve to get that 13 pointer, but also 11 pointers now being possible for a home team too. A really exciting change, and those club teams should be getting, those club picks should be getting you more points. So exciting. And then there's been a new chip added to the game as well, the 1 club chip, which I absolutely love. Whoever came up with this idea, thank you. Yes, you can pick a team of up to 7 players from 1 club for 1 game week only. So available once over the season. So for example, if a triple game week was to happen, which I think is relatively unlikely this season, we're not going to have that one over Christmas anyway, then you could pick 7 players from that 1 team with a triple game week, which is absurd. I don't think you need to fill all 7, it just means that the cap is lifted. So I'm probably going to use it on Wickham players in a double game week, and I am going to get 1 million points, please. So moving on to my thoughts on the club picks in game week 1. Obviously there's a lot of different choices in Fantasy EFL. This week 48 different teams, with it just being League 1 and League 2 in the opening week of game week 1. So there's a lot to choose from, probably a few teams that you might think I've missed out, but I've gone over the 5 most popular teams as well as 3 differentials that I've added in at the bottom there as well. So as you can see, Luton, we're going to start with 52%. Obviously they play on the Friday night, so I think a lot of that is people just not wanting to miss out on players on the Friday night. You want to be able to enjoy it, don't you? Sit down, take in your fantasy players and enjoy cheering them on. So I think that's, a lot of the reason behind it. I'm struggling with the FOMO as well, and I think I want to put Luton in. But the numbers, obviously, they're from last year. So the ones that I've highlighted in pink are when the division has changed. So they've either gone up or down. So Luton Wimbledon is a bit unpredictable. But I think we can expect Luton to do well in the game. So obviously the numbers from last year weren't brilliant, but they're going to be so different this year. I think Bloomfield got them cooking towards the end, the last 10 games of the season. So I think their form was that of a top half team. So excited to see what Luton can do this season. I think they'll be a great team. MK Dons, relatively similar. I think that with Paul Warne in charge, they've had a good window. I think they're going to be a very different team to last season. It's the same with Cardiff as well, both of those teams at the top there. The Oldham fixture for MK Dons is great. Oldham's numbers weren't even amazing last season, considering they got promoted. I don't think they're going to be one of those teams that bounce straight from the National League to the top end of League Two. But we will see. Maybe I'll be eating my words on that, and I hope that I am proven wrong, because it would be a great story. And Cardiff playing Peterborough as well. Peterborough were all over the shop last year defensively. They conceded 81 goals, as you can see in the tally that we've got there, which is crazy. I think with some of the attackers that Cardiff have, I really like them as a pick, and 13% is fairly low. Obviously, you might want to save Luton and Cardiff for those double game weeks, maybe a triple game week if we manage to get them. Wycombe and Blackpool now, probably the 2 most stable teams out of the ones in there that we can predict a bit better. Wycombe have had a lot of changes there. The team that I support, obviously, I'd love to be telling you, go and put Wycombe assets in your team. But I think that Bradford away is a really tricky fixture to start with. That's why I've highlighted it in orange, because I think it is pretty tricky. The average points and the clean sheets for Wycombe were great last season, but I think it's a tricky place to go. It's going to be a tough game. I'm not 100% certain that we're winning that game, especially with the amount of change in the squad. I think it might take a bit of time for us to warm up, but it is the potential, for the bonus away points. So not 100% against it, but I don't think I'm going to be backing us this week. I prefer saving us for those doubles. But Blackpool, they've had such a great window, not lost too many people, but I think the loss of Apter will be felt. But I still think that their squad is in a really good shape, a good window. I think that Bruce got them playing some good stuff. I think that people are expecting them to be up there, and they're one of the favourites to be up towards the top end of the table. And I'm not against the Blackpool pick whatsoever this week. Gillingham, Cambridge and Exeter are my shouts for a bit of a differential. They are a bit more out there, all under 2% as picks. Gillingham, I think that Aki away is a decent fixture. Aki, who struggled a bit last season, and Gillingham, who went, I think, 11 games unbeaten under Ainsworth at the end of the season, or something around that. Their clean sheet numbers are actually great as well, 17, which is the second best on this list for a team who finished 17th. So I think that Gillingham is a good shout. Cambridge, again, just gone down. I like the look of their squad. I don't think Cheltenham are the best team in the world in League Two. I don't think they're going to have an amazing season. Maybe I'll be wrong there as well, but I think that Cambridge is a good outside shout if you don't want to use one of those top picks in game week 1 if we're looking tactically already. And then Exeter away at Doncaster. I think that this game could go either way, but it might take Doncaster a bit of time to adjust. Exeter, who people are sleeping on because I think they're expected to have a pretty bad season. I'm not expecting great things from Exeter, but if they're a team that you could use this week and you're probably not going to use again all season. So, you're saving team picks elsewhere out of the 5 club picks that you get for a Luton or a Cardiff, and you're facing away at a side who are being pipped for relegation. So I think that the Exeter pick could be useful this week, but obviously it's not 100% and nowhere near a guarantee of a win. Now to dive into the player picks, and the defenders are a really interesting slot, I think, this year. Obviously, because the clearances have been nerfed a little bit, I think we might see more of a move towards 3 in midfield or even 2 up front. I think there's plenty of different options for this week that you could go for, but the main one who's been really popular is Casey, who I've highlighted here, 45.3%. I think Stevenage is a great fixture and I'm tempted by it. The average of 7.1 points is just ridiculous. So really not against that, and I see why he's so popular. But the attacking threat isn't amazing. Somebody whose attacking threat stands out to me, and I promise you, I'm not just being biased to the chairboys here, but Taylor Allen in pre-season has been getting so far forward. He's got 2 assists already in pre-season, 11 goals and 7 assists last year is genuinely ridiculous. 0.26 expected goal involvements per 92. Yeah, he's had a position change from a midfielder to a defender this year. I think he's going to be really popular, and he's somebody who I'm looking at putting the armband on quite a few times because he might be on set pieces like he was at Walsall. He also could take penalties because Wickham did struggle in terms of penalties last season, with Kone and Leahy missing quite a few. So yeah, the potential to be a really standout asset there, and I think that popularity might only increase going into the future. Kerr at Wigan as well. I really like the fixture against Northampton. 18 clean sheets last season is a ridiculous tally. Northampton not brilliant attacking wise and good to target for clearances as well. Those who tuned into the Wanderers TV content last season, as well as my content over on Twitter, you will know that we had the Northampton theory, thanks to Joe as well, who's a Lincoln fan that always messaged in and mentioned about it. So shout out to you, Joe, as well. Yeah, so something to be aware of is that Northampton are a good side to target for clearance wise, potentially if that continues going into the season. But not great attacking threat from Kerr, but very solid in terms of the chance of a clean sheet. Joe Lowe, I think, is a really good signing for Huddersfield. I promise I'm not salty about it as a Wickham fan, seeing him go. It's very sad to see, but I think that he could do really, really well this season. I think his clearance numbers are decent. His goal threat's amazing for a centre-back, 0.17. That's without any kind of set pieces or anything like that. He's just a brilliant goal threat and gets forward. There's not many people better at attacking a corner than Joe Lowe in the EFL. Nigel Longwyke is an outside shout for me, but I think Bloomfield's going to favour him. He could play on the left or the right or in the middle of the defensive line for Luton. 7 out of 21 clean sheets last season is pretty good as well. So I think Blooms might favour him, and he always seemed to like getting forward for us, even though his expected goals last season wasn't brilliant. Max Clark at Gillingham is just typical Gareth Ainsworth. He's one of those left backs. He reminds me of a Joe Jacobson, a Luke Leahy, those type of players. Take set pieces. It's really worth looking at this because 6.5 average points is brilliant for Clark. 3 goals and 5 assists is amazing. 0.19 expected goal involvement and only 1.6% selected. So I'd have your eyes on Max Clark if you want a differential in your team. And then off forward as well from MK Dons. I think anybody could afford to have him in their team this week. I'm sorry for the terrible pun. But I think his clearances were great. I think he's actually could be a better asset than Tomlinson, who more people seem to be leaning to from MK Dons. I like Offord as a potential asset. Even though his average last season wasn't great, I think the Oldham fixture is brilliant to start with, and certainly one that you could be targeting. Now onto the midfielder section of this video, and I think I'm going to have a bit of an extended time talking about Luke Molyneux as an asset and Doncaster, just like I spoke about them a bit earlier as well. But all of these assets I quite like. There's one at the bottom that I've highlighted, Reading Saville, who I'll talk about a bit later. But Luke Molyneux, I think he isn't going to be the same asset as he was last year. I've highlighted his expected goal involvement in orange because I'm not expecting that to stay the same. I think that he's still going to be a good asset, and I think he's still going to get good numbers in League One. But he's really popular for this season. Maybe it's just for this week because the Exeter fixture is a pretty good one. And Exeter are being tipped to have a bit of a tough season after not a brilliant window. But yeah, I do like him as a pick this week, but I think it's worth being wary that I think his numbers might drop off a little bit this season. The difference between League 2 and League 1, the gap seems to be growing in my opinion, but I do think that he could still have a great season. So this is a good fixture for him, but I'd be aware going forward as we're just in game week 1 at the minute. Lewis Wing, I don't really like the Lincoln away fixture massively for Reading. I think their window's been okay. Things still a bit up in the air at Reading about their ownership. I know that Kuig's come in, but some of the fans not too happy with how the season's gone. But some of the fans not too happy with Lewis Wing away at Lincoln. I'm not a massive fan of. I think that Lincoln's a really tricky place to go. I think his average points were amazing. If anybody can drag his team through a tricky fixture, it's Lewis Wing. He's a ridiculous player. somebody who could play in the Championship, and Reading are doing well to keep a hold of him. I'm not a massive fan of the Lincoln away fixture. Still don't mind it as a pick whatsoever, and I'm tempted by it myself. But I think there will be better weeks to have Lewis Wing in your team. I think that Jack Payne is an asset who nearly every week in League Two, he's a good option to go for. His expected goal involvement numbers are the standout for me here. 0.51 XGI per 90, and he stayed in the same league, in the same team, the same management. I think that Payne could be a real asset, and I don't mind that fixture at home to Tranmere whatsoever. His numbers were just ridiculous last season. Adds the odd interception, but just that attacking numbers, especially with the shots on target points, could be brilliant for him. Albie Morgan was my favourite midfielder in Fantasy EFL last season. Those of you who read my content on Twitter will know this man I have a bit of a love affair for. Oh my goodness, what an asset he was for me. 6.8 average is ridiculous. The routes to points with Albie Morgan, are just ridiculous. He can, pull something out of absolutely nowhere, whether it's a couple of interceptions over a couple minutes or adds a few goals and assists as well. His XGI numbers aren't the most amazing, but they're decent. And I think I'm looking at him, with a pretty favourable fixture in the first week. Colwill and Woods are my two differentials. Now, Colwill, I'm expecting to have a breakout season in League One. The numbers obviously don't back it up too much, but bear in mind they are from the Championship last season as they were relegated. So I think that 0.29 XGI per night in the Championship for somebody who didn't get a consistent run of games too often, I think is actually really promising for Colwill. And he scored a couple in pre-season for Cardiff already, so I quite like what I'm seeing in terms of Colwill. With Ben Woods, he was a differential every week last week, and he got 6.4 average points, which is the same as Luke Molyneux, but they've got over a 50% discrepancy between the two of them. The Gillingham fixture, I don't think is the worst, but it's not amazing for Ben Woods. But whether he's if he plays at wing back, he tends to be really good for interceptions. If he plays in midfield, the attacking threat's a lot better. So Woods, if you want a differential midfielder, I think he's a great asset to have. And there's even potential that he outscores Molyneux quite a few times because, the league difference. Woods is staying in League Two. Molyneux stepped up. Molyneux's obviously way more attacking and benefits from the shots on targets changing this year, but I think that Woods is a decent shout. And then Saville, I've put him in red for his percentage because I can't understand it personally. I think that people are just attacking Luton assets in terms of him because they want a player to watch on the Friday night, which is absolutely fine if that's how you want to play it. But I think with shots on target being a bit better this year, I'd rather attack a bit of a more attacking midfielder. I loved having interception-based midfielders in my team at times. Those of you who read the threads will know we had the weekly interception special. That's probably going to have to die a sad death because of the way that midfielders have changed this year, unless, some crazy interceptors pop up. But I don't think the Saville pick is great. His attacking data isn't too bad with 0.21 XGI per 90. The goals and assists, not brilliant. I think that you would be better going for a more attacking pick. I think that he's playing it relatively safe, even though I don't think the interceptions will be as good as Bloomfield plays a lot more possession-based football with Luton than Millwall did with Saville. Now, finally, we're looking at forwards going into game week 1, and this is a position that I've got my mindset on one person, but there are tons of options that you could choose depending on how you're feeling. I'm going to talk about King Kone at first, Wycombe's finest. I think that the Bradford fixture is tricky, and I'm going to be staying away for this week. But I do think that Kone, there's a good chance that he takes penalties to start the season until maybe he misses one. His record wasn't great last season. But his expected goal involvement data is brilliant. He scored a hat-trick last season and actually missed a penalty that would have been a second hat-trick of the season as well. So yeah, a player with absolutely massive potential. He's so explosive and could get you a mega haul in any given week, but I don't know if this is the right week for him. Michael Cheek, the League Two's player of the season, Kone being League One's player of the season. I think with Cheek, again, the Shrewsbury away fixture could be relatively tricky with Shrewsbury just coming down, but a player with 25 goals and 6 assists last season, I'm never going to be complaining at somebody who's picking him. I think it could be a decent shout, and in any given week, Cheek could be a really good option. His expected goal involvement data is really good as well at 0.61, so don't mind Cheek whatsoever. The same with Alfie May. I think Orient could be a tricky fixture, but I do expect Orient to drop off a little bit this season. They had such a good year last year, and if they can replicate that without Kelman, then fair enough. But yeah, his numbers were great last season as well. He's going to be the main man for Huddersfield, you would like to think, although maybe him and Taylor will rotate a tad. But I don't mind May whatsoever, and I think all three of those first ones would definitely be on penalties. When it comes to Collins from MK Dons, really popular pick. I like it for this week. I stayed away from MK assets all of last year, but I don't think I can avoid them anymore this year based on the amount that I don't like them as a Wickham fan. I think that Collins is a good shout for this week. His data was decent in League 1, bear in mind, with 41 key passes and 38 shots on target. He's dropped down a league, a ridiculous signing for League 2. I think he's only going to get better and better, and 12 goals and 5 assists in League 1 to then drop down at a very good age. I think he's going to absolutely smash it in League 2. Now, Salech and Wells are my two favourites actually here, both of them dropping down into League 1. I think that Wells is a crazy signing for Luton in League 1. He brings such good experience, and 10 goals in the Championship last year to then drop down. He could probably have got himself a Championship move. And Salech, I like the most out of all the players here, I'll be honest. 8 goals and 2 assists in 20 games in the Championship. It was a really good tally, for especially at a team who got relegated. 0.55 XGI per 90 as well was really solid. Again, that's in the Championship. He's dropped down to League 1. I think he's going to absolutely tear it up. His shots on target numbers were brilliant, averaging more than 1 per game as well. So you're talking maybe a bonus point at least a game. I think that Salech is a really good pick, especially against the Peterborough side who concede a lot of goals. And then Nombe as well, one of my final differential picks sort of out of those bottom 3. Port Vale fixture I think is great. 21 goal contributions last year, which is actually the same as Richard Coney. Decent numbers all around for him, and I really don't mind that as a pick against Port Vale. Now, finally, to move on to my team selection for the week. Now, it's worth me saying this isn't final. We've got a few days to go, and obviously with team news maybe changing things if some of these players aren't starting, then I will have to move things around, and I might end up moving it around. I literally moved it around before I started recording this video, so there's no guarantee that I do go with this, but this is what I'm on at the minute. Keeley in net, I think him and the Luton pick, I might be going with because of FOMO. I just don't want to miss a massive Luton haul on the Friday night, which is obviously really exciting to have in your team. But are they the perfect picks? I don't know. They're playing against Wimbledon, who have just come up from League 2, but Wimbledon do seem to love an upset over the years, so I don't know. I do feel pretty good about the Luton pick, and I think I'll probably stick with them, but not 100% on it. Off forward and the MK Dons selection. So I didn't have, as I mentioned before, I didn't have one MK Dons asset in my team for the whole of last season. I avoided them in terms of content because I'm not a big MK Dons fan as a Wickham fan, and they did fall off towards the end of the season. I don't think I can afford to skip them out this year. I think it's worth me talking about them. And I think that they are really good options for this first week, especially against Oldham. It's the perfect fixture. If a team's going to score 4 goals in the first week, my money would be on MK Dons to be the team to do that. But that's a really bold prediction, and the likelihood of that happening is slim. But I think it's possible. There's potential for it. Taylor Allen as my captain. I think he could be on set pieces, but the way that he's been getting forward from left back, pops up in the box, good at attacking a corner, maybe even takes them, maybe takes free kicks if Leahy's not on the pitch, maybe takes penalties if Coney or Leahy aren't on as well, or maybe takes them anyway. I think that Taylor Allen is a good shout for captaincy. A bit of bias in there, I'll be honest, but I think he's a really good asset, and especially in better fixtures, he's going to be so popular. And then my midfield is Molyneux, Payne and Morgan. Morgan, the routes to points are ridiculous. Payne, I'm probably the least sure on out of any player in the team. I'm tempted to swap him out, but I do think the fixture is decent and he can get points from, those shots on targets, those key passes, as well as the goal contributions. Now, when it comes to Molyneux, I think this could be one of the best weeks to select him in the whole of the season, as I mentioned earlier. So I don't think I'm going to take the risk and go without him. I do think that you can afford to try and go a bit more differential this week, but I do quite like him. I'd like to test the waters, see how he does in League 1, and backing him in my team. I think I might just do that this week. And then Salech up front, I feel really confident in. He's had a great pre-season. He's been scoring so many goals for Cardiff, scored a lot in the Championship. I don't see why he can't make the step up. And I think Peterborough potentially conceded the most goals in all of League 1 last season. So he could have an absolute field day. Maybe it'll be a miss, but I feel really confident in Salich in terms of a forward. If I was going to swap things around, I'd maybe take Payne out and put Wells in if I was going to be, play it risky. I could take Payne out for any of those, any of those players, obviously apart from Tickle. But yeah, those players on my watch list are the ones that I'm really thinking about and potentially going for instead. I like the Casey pick, I like the wing pick too. It's tricky. If one of those 4 players on my watch list does end up in my team, then don't be surprised whatsoever. But that's what I'm on at the minute, how I'm feeling. But yeah, everything might change when team news comes out. I hope you've enjoyed watching my first ever video on the channel, my game week 1 fantasy EFL tips, my preview for the week and everything that's going on. I'm hoping I'll be able to bring you a fantasy EFL video every single week, maybe some FPL content as well. I'd like to do a weekly video too, but it might be a little bit much with me working. So whether I'll get time with it or not, I'm not sure. I'd also like to bring you along when I do commentary, when I go on my little adventures, watching Wickham, if I'm travelling around Europe, watching any football, which I've got plans to do. I'd love to take you with me, make some videos on that as well. Got loads of ideas for the channel, loads of stuff that I want to do, maybe even football shirt things, that kind of stuff, just anything football related, EFL related. Hope that my preview has been useful for the first week. If you've come over from my Twitter, thank you so much. And if you've just found this organically, welcome along. I hope you've enjoyed and that you'll stick with us. But for now, thank you so much for watching, for being a part of my first ever video. Hope you will leave a comment on whatever I could improve, what you think is needed. Hopefully I'll get a new mic soon and sort the backdrop out a little bit as well. But yeah, leave a like, comment, subscribe, share it, tell your nan to subscribe, tell your friends to subscribe. Get them involved with Fantasy EFL. We want as many people in the community as possible. So yeah, thanks so much for watching. Any support is appreciated whatsoever, and hopefully I will catch you in the next one. And good luck in game week 1.